if I was really thinking about it, and I don't think that he's cocky, but the person who gives me the coldest interviews all the time would be...
This is juicy.
Podcast. You're listening to the Stripped Podcast by the Lacrosse Flash, talking all things life and lacrosse with Tyson Geik and Colton Clark.
Once again. Are we ready?
Well, apparently our guest, who's supposed to be also a fan, hasn't been tuning in too often because he's already drinking ahead of us, which is...
Fuck, Adam.
Not polite. Not polite. No.
Not polite, but welcome back. Ben, where the fuck's your beer, man?
Yo, can we toss him one, please?
Jesus Christ. This was episode 7. In fairness, this is only episode 4 of drinking, I think. We've had 5.
Got to up that for sure.
Just keeping track.
Dixon Delbs.
Okay, so Mitch brought the nice wine last time, but Adam has brought the best beer selection, I think. We've had like 4 different choices plus a non-alcoholic dry hopped beer, which you've been lovely enough to bring. But I got to do your intro. Sorry, I've kind of skipped over that.
That's okay.
We were sitting and we were thinking, how can we follow up the potential MVP of the 2019-2020 season? And we thought, what better way than to
fuck it? Let's not even try.
bring on a reporter who brings non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah, that makes sense. That seems like a good formula.
Yeah.
Different target though. Like maybe we're going after the people who don't drink as well, like the Cornwall crew.
They inspired me. I have to say, yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, no, really. I think that it's not every day you see athletes being open and honest about not drinking. It's very much instilled in the culture, right?
True.
Drinking. So really cool to see them talk about that.
It just not even to downplay your importance to the National Lacrosse League, because you've come on the scene and there are few better when it comes to covering the league like you've been in the past few seasons. And when I started the NLL Flash last year, you were one of the first guys I thought of because of your kind of interest in years prior, reaching out to Pat, Ashley, and myself on Relax.
Yeah.
And obviously, then I wanted to give you the platform, but you deserve to be sitting here just as much as anyone else. So welcome, man.
Thank you so much.
Great to have you on board here. And you've been a huge contributor with the Lacrosse Flash as well.
This is a part where you announce his name.
Adam Levy.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. My bad. That was really late.
Not Levi or Levy. That happens a lot.
Yes.
I like Levy. I like Levy better.
Dude, it took me.
Thank you. I'll tell my family lineage.
Yeah. This guy on a podcast that 300 people listen to say your name sounds better this way.
I mean, I'm glad you have it in your Twitter bio.
Yeah.
Is it your bio? It's just the right way to pronounce it, because everyone's seeing that goes Levi.
Yes.
Sure.
Well, I had to, my first interview, Warriors Weekly with Dave Sheldon, for the first 20 minutes of my interview, he called me Levi.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to say. It was Sportsnet. It was my first time on the radio with him. And I was like, do I correct him on air? And so afterwards, I was just like, Dave, that's not my name. That's not how you pronounce it. And
that's not my name.
It's a very sneaky, like, analyst way of throwing in like the pronunciation guide too, like in your name. I like it.
No, it's a great idea. I think at the end with something like
probably
that,
have it.
yeah, absolutely. That's why I just have LW most of the time. Yeah. But at the end of the podcast, or when you're on Sportsnet, I should say, just slip it in. By the way, it's Levy. Yeah, and then you hang up the phone.
Yeah. What does the LW stand for? I think the world needs
Louis
to know.
Winston.
Everyone's got their own take on what it is. I don't even know if I want to reveal it.
It's not the time.
No, it's just people, like, I leave it to the imagination, I think.
I like the anonymity, I think. Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
It's just, it's become a part of the brand. I've actually had it since I was like 20 now. Like,
wow.
all my kind of domains are like Tyson LW, and it just stuck. And moving on.
Okay.
Yeah. So you, like I said, you've become such a big part of the National Lacrosse League, just lacrosse in general, covering the sport, really dedicating a lot of your time to it. But like, why lacrosse? Where did that come from for you?
Yeah. So my dad was an All-American D3 lacrosse player at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. My grandfather played at Johns Hopkins. And I had watched the field game all of my life. I should preface, I'm from New York originally.
Okay.
I had not seen box lacrosse or even heard of it until I interned there in like 2013, and I was working in the New York office.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I moved to Vancouver after some interesting life journeys, and I got back into lacrosse. I was like, I had interned here before. I hear it's growing, and yeah, so I reached out to the NLL, and they hired me as a highlight producer.
Why Canada?
Oh, that is. Or
do they even know you're here?
They do, and maybe that's a bad thing. But I was dating this German girl in New York, and she had visa issues, and I had just finished college, and I needed to go somewhere where I could speak the language, and also she could be there for longer term. So we settled on Vancouver. We tried Montreal first in the heart of December, and that was miserable. Yeah, it was minus 25, and we said, we can't do this. If Canada is going to be like this isn't going to work.
Okay, so what do you think? Maybe I shouldn't ask you because you're going to be a little bit biased, but like rain all the time or snow for part of the year?
Rain all the time, even if it's really depressing.
Really?
Yeah. Winters suck here.
I don't know how I feel about this one.
At least it's still beautiful to look at. Toronto's dog shit.
Oh, today was like not a cloud in the sky, one of the nicest days ever, and you could just feel the sun on you and like absorbing vitamin D. It was great. But
yeah, I mean, when it's
gray,
yeah,
man, it's depressing. Like this year, I said to myself, I got to take a vacation somewhere. Like I got to go to Hawaii and just mix in some sunshine because it is too much.
Yeah, I mean, it is really depressing. I think it was like 90% cloud cover in January, which is like, that is awfully depressing.
Yeah.
And you feel it, but like, I mean, it's we don't get the extreme weather, which is awesome. New York, it's like bitter cold. It's like Toronto, right? So yeah.
I found the temperature to be quite similar. When I was going to Quinnipiac, I was like an hour and a half north of New York. And all the Americans down there would be like, oh my God, you're from Canada? It must be so cold. I'm like, it's actually worse here than it is in Toronto right now. Like, if you compare the temperatures, but.
Yeah. You seem perplexed.
Yeah.
Well, it's where to go next with this. I suppose we want to cover Adam a little bit, but having an analyst on here, an analyst sitting in front of me, and yourself, Tyson, we obviously want to talk about lacrosse more so than anything, I guess. But I guess being from, you said Rochester, is that?
Oh no, I'm straight from New York City.
New York City.
Grew up in Manhattan.
Do you have any bias towards like the closer to New York teams in the NLL, being an analyst? Or
do you have a soft spot maybe?
Yeah, do you have a soft spot?
I think it's great that lacrosse is on Long Island. I think that's phenomenal for the league, and it's
How did you pronounce that?
Long Island.
Oh, that came out way different than what I heard.
Long Island?
Yeah.
Long Island?
Yeah, I think you pronounced it differently the first time. We'll run it back.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I've talked about how like lacrosse is such a hotbed on Long Island.
Yeah.
But it's more the field game. It's how do you introduce fans to the box game? Because like, as I said, for me, like I grew up in New York and I had no idea what the NLL was. So
crazy.
Yeah.
It makes sense if you're a kid.
It's not really. There's some like New York Titans, like back in the day, there's some studs that were playing on that team.
Fair,
like,
but if you don't,
I think didn't Casey Powell play on that team? Like
there wasn't even digital content to consume back then. I mean, it was on TV a little bit more, not a lot.
Weren't they playing in MSG too?
For a little bit.
Yeah, they did play in MSG, but I think that, when you're competing in such an intense market like New York, I mean, you've got
so
the Yankees.
oversaturated.
Yeah. Oh, it's so crazy saturated.
Yeah.
Yeah, Broadway shows over NLL any day of the week.
Depends on the Broadway show, I gotta say.
So what do you think about the success of the Titans? Well, not on the floor, but just of the organization kind of getting started off so far, and like knowing that area, what do you think they need to do to really become a hotter ticket in town and seeing fans in the seats? Yeah,
it was interesting. I was watching the 30 for 30 documentary Big Shot again, and that's all about how John Spano came in.
That was a good one.
Yeah, he kind of duped all of Long Island with all this big money that he ended up not having.
Yeah.
But one thing that you learned through that documentary was that team, a lot of guys weren't from Long Island. However, they embraced what Long Island was. They embraced the town. They embraced the people. And there's a really strong community out there. You go to each individual city and the amount of pride that they have is unbelievable. So I think that embracing that community out in Long Island, making them know that you care about them and you care about what they have to bring as fans as much as you have to bring to them is super important.
What do you think about Jersey? Just quickly.
I've never liked it.
No?
Never liked it. My mom's from Atlantic City, and
Jersey Shore?
I hate it.
Hate it.
I'm sorry. I hate everything about
I'm
Jersey.
indifferent. Yeah.
I saw that commercial for the Jersey Shore family vacation come on again, and it just shot me right back to freshman year in college. And I was just like, oh man, you know, I couldn't help but like it for whatever reason.
You were a watcher of that show?
For sure, I was. Yeah, that was my trash TV guilty pleasure.
Like
100%.
We watched The Bachelor last night, so I've got no real leg to stand on if I'm going to be throwing stones at Colt. But that show's bad. You know what would more bring me back? I think it'd be like The Hills.
Aren't they?
Yeah,
they're doing a
was a good
remake
one.
of that actually.
Reunion tour of The Hills.
Yeah, and Friends apparently. I hear.
Well, that's a classic Friends. We were just
that
watching
shouldn't even
it.
be in the same category.
Not
Yeah,
trash
that's
TV.
My apologies.
If we're going back to that, we just finished Sedin week with the Canucks, and I think you got a really good point there at how the team needs to be out in the community and showing that they do care about the community and like going and doing community events all the time. And sometimes it's tough for the guys when they're coming in from out of market to be doing that all the time. But like you just saw how important the Sedins were here in this community and what a difference they made. And you know, there's a bit of a hole there because they're not there anymore. But I think that lacrosse needs to kind of take a close look at that, and they need to be doing that as much as possible.
Yeah, and talking to a lot of the organizations, whether it's the junior leagues or other leagues around Vancouver, they love it when the Warriors come out and participate in events and things like that and teach the kids. I think that that's really helpful in expanding the game, and it's a real problem because lacrosse numbers are down across most of like Vancouver proper. If you go out into Metro Vancouver, places like Abbotsford further out, it's growing.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about just Vancouver, the numbers are lower than they've been in many years.
Yeah.
And so that's really unfortunate to see.
Everybody wants to be a YouTuber now, man. Nobody wants to play sports.
Yeah, it's really expensive. And, you know, there's a lot of other sports now. The Raptors have done so many great things for basketball. That's on the rise. You know, you have to just look at demographics also. There's a huge Southeast Asian community, and they don't know much about lacrosse. And so how do you teach them a totally new game?
Maybe we can fire up a couple of topics that you want to talk about throughout the NLL or even just lacrosse in general.
Yeah, you've been here to film, what, 1 or 2 episodes?
Yep.
So you've had some time to kind of sit back and maybe see what Strip needs a little bit more of, or maybe it's kind of got you thinking about certain topics that you want to bring up here, so we can give you the floor as well.
Yeah, well, I think that one of the things that I think is great is that, you know, engaging the guests is really good, but I'd love to hear more about, like, you guys. Like, what do you guys, what's your history in lacrosse? How does it feel? You know, I know that tracking the game like I have, like, I'm really curious, Colt, about your experience with the Warriors from kind of start to finish.
Let's start there. Experience with just the Warriors?
Well, I mean,
Or
that's
just-
your most recent experience.
That
but
is,
yeah.
Well, obviously, I had a pretty decent summer last summer, points wise.
Top 10 scoring.
Top
at
10
WLA.
scoring.
Yeah,
I ended up
not a
in
big deal.
8th or something like that, and then or something like that. Like I know.
He knows.
It was 8th.
How many points was it exactly?
I don't know. I have no idea. I couldn't, honest to God, I couldn't tell you. But so I got invited to camp, and you know, like I love competing no matter what, and so you go through the process of like heavy training going into camp. Like I probably started 3 months. Like I go to the gym every day, or not every day, 6 days a week, but that 3 months before camp is when you really ramp it up, and we're going 2-3 times a week training with a place in South Vancouver. The name escapes me right now, but I'll mention it at the end of the podcast. But yeah, so we were doing that every week. Is really intense training, and you know, to go into camp, I felt awesome going into camp. But you know, came up a little bit short personally. You know, I thought I had a really good camp. I put in points, but at the end of the day, the decision by the team was to not keep me on board, which was, you know, tough because You know, I look around and, you know, you compare yourself to other players and even just like points wise. But there's an old saying, comparison's the thief of joy. You can't really compare yourself to any others, especially in lacrosse and in a professional sport where, you know, it's not up to you. All you can do is put your best foot forward, and it's really up to the coaching and management. And they're putting together a team that they think is best going to help them win a championship or get them in playoffs. I think for Vancouver is more of a playoff team to get into playoffs and a championship team at this point. But, you know, and I just wasn't the guy for them. And, you know, no real hard feelings on it. I understand it. But you know what, if I'm given the opportunity again next year to try out for another team, I'd probably go for it just because I like competing and I like, you know, putting my body through that test of the training camp and just seeing kind of what you're made of and how you stand out.
Guy needs to make a run at a WLA title this summer. I think that should be on the, I don't know.
A run at a WLA title?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, do it.
See. Yeah, we got a lot of young, good guys. I'm the oldest guy on the team. We'll see where that goes. You know, we'll see what kind of team Chris Bowman puts together this year and just go from there. If a trade
happens, a trade happens.
Go from there. Yeah, you never know. I've heard rumblings of it, but
is it like the pipe dream, I guess, for WLA guys to say like, hey, I'm not in the NLL right now, and that's what I'd like to make my full-time job? You have another job.
I have another job, yeah. You know, for me, money, lacrosse isn't about money.
I don't think it is for anybody.
Well, I mean, some guys like definitely depend on it. Like for me, with my job, I wouldn't ever depend on it. And probably would get taxed a lot of that money. So I'd be playing for, you know, next to nothing anyways. So it's, you know, it's just about competing at the highest level. You know, I played the game for 26 years and I don't want to play, you know, I'm 30 now, but I also feel like I'm in the best shape of my life. So I want to play at the best I can play or best level I can play at for as long as I could play there. No, the WLA isn't the best, but it is, you know, it's still a competitive league. There's some dog shit about it for sure, but it's a league that guys aren't making a lot of money at. You know, I think the highest paid player in the WLA is probably, sorry guys, this is off the top of my head, in the WLA, probably around 10 grand. In the Ontario League, I think they get paid an astronomical amount.
Depending on what team you play for.
Depending on what team you play for. So, yeah, to a short answer to your question, I want to play at the highest level. But I definitely don't look down on the WLA. It's a place to play, and it's entertaining. Like you go to a game in, you know, and I've heard this from many, like my old roommate, he said, a game in New Westminster, like he loves going to a WLA game in New Westminster, like the atmosphere there, and then the atmosphere in Victoria is better than some NLL teams, a few NLL teams, to be honest with you. And even just playing, like I've played for New West, and playing in that atmosphere is unbelievable. No slouch to Nanaimo, but it's just, you know, it's a lot bigger arena and less fans, whereas New West is a smaller arena and a lot of fans. And same in Victoria. Victoria's a big arena and it's packed. So it's like, even though they're not our fans, it's still an amazing atmosphere to play in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the WLA is underrated. You see the real diehards, you know, diehard fans come out to those games. You see family members. You see all kinds of players and people who have tracked the game for such a long time. I remember one day I was covering the WLA actually for one of my first articles for Flash over the summer. And I was sitting next to Kevin Crowley's uncle, and we just started catching up and talking. And he was telling me at the time he was still with New England, and he was like, "Oh, you watch, he's going to get traded to Philadelphia."
Oh, I think like, everyone called that.
Yeah, and I was like, okay. I was like, all right, that's nice. But it was just like cool to have that experience, and I think it's really cool to have that environment because there's a lot of people who come out to NLL games, and we need new fans. Like you can't grow the sport without new fans, but like. To see people who have been tracking those games for so many years, like you need those people to always stick around to help grow.
Yeah, I think the hardcore fans are definitely important. But the thing about the WLA is, I said this last time, and it's the same thing for major series, is like outside of that market, people ain't coming in.
Yep.
Like they're not coming in from an hour away to see a game. Usually, I'm sure there are some exceptions, so relax. But yeah, it's just like it's a in-market thing, and that's totally cool.
Yep.
It works in Peterborough. You know, I covered the team for a year on their TV broadcast when they won the Mann Cup back in 2012, and it was fucking incredible. It was awesome every single game.
Yep.
But you know, there's some teams that don't get that support, and you know, to think that the NLL needs to make moves to, I don't know, kind of take care of like major series or WLA is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I do think that a partnership between those leagues, like I was very confused by why they made a partnership with the Arena Lacrosse League, the NLL, before they would do
Optics are
WLA.
terrible. They need to work on their logos. I'm a big brand guy. People know that. You got to see these things, man. It's like a child designed them.
For which?
For the Arena Lacrosse League. It's like the developmental AHL, if you will.
There's an Arena Lacrosse League?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know. Wow.
Yeah.
It's in Ontario. It was an interesting partnership, but
Yeah.
I guess there were a lot of guys that were going to play there.
Yeah,
that
and
needed
there's
something to do
Yep.
while they weren't playing for NLL teams that they got cut.
Is that like the stick horses, like that league, or are we talking like what was that?
Oh, the NALL?
What was
No, that was back in the day.
that was your heyday?
Yeah. I got drafted second last overall to the Jacksonville Bullies.
in the ALL.
NALL,
Oh,
North American Lacrosse League. There was 4 teams.
Yeah.
And I think it was like Hershey, Kentucky,
Yep.
Charlotte, and Jacksonville. Oh, and Wilkes-Barre had a team too.
Yeah.
So 5. And before the season started, I think 3 of the teams folded.
Oh.
And then they actually tried to start a season. There was like all these financial troubles and people suing each other, and it went, you know, tits up pretty quick. But they tried to start the league with just Jacksonville and Kentucky going head to head, like for the entire season, like 2 teams. And they actually played in like ECHL style barns. But anyways, where were we? Arena Lacrosse League. Yeah, you gotta get out there and look up their logos. They got some work to do on those. The optics.
I probably won't. You know me. Sure. I probably won't. But
I do agree that guys need some, like, a place to sharpen their skills. Like Colt was saying too, it's a place to play, right? So there just needs to be some, you know, finessing done over the years, and maybe some partnerships formed in order to, I don't know, make things work properly. But it's tough to do now. Yeah, like if you start a league in the West during NLL season, like, how do you think that's going to fly? Are people going to go to those games?
Probably not. I think, out west, there's just not enough there. Even, like, it was amazing being in Las Vegas for that game for the Seals and the Mammoth.
Oh, we got to talk about that,
It was a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
But the thing is that it was a great atmosphere because so many Mammoth fans and so many Seals fans went.
That's so cool. That was really cool to see.
Really great. And I was actually doing the social media for that, and there was like a huge section of like 40 Colorado Mammoth fans, and like they were wearing, like, one guy had Colorado Mammoth shoes on, like they were diehards. And that was really great to see.
Any Clark jerseys?
No, I did not. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Did you know someone's got a Clark tattoo?
I'm sure they regret it. Yeah.
No. He displays it with pride.
I hope is it you?
It is, yeah. Is it me? Oh, no. I got my own, the Mammoth tattoo. No, just
what's his name again? He always used to reach out on Twitter.
Sean Tyrell.
That's it.
Sean Tyrell. He's got a couple guys' names though. His arm's filled with them.
He's got Mammoth players' names on the inside of his arm.
Okay,
and a Mammoth logo tattooed on him.
That's I only ask because there was a guy in high school. I didn't really like him that much at the time. He's now doing pottery or something wherever. But his name is Jonah Hill. He was like the star basketball player.
Jonah.
Sorry, Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Jonah Hill.
I'm pretty sure it was Jonah Hill. I'd have to double check, but yes, it wasn't that Jonah Hill.
Okay,
this was some tall, lanky dude,
shit.
he knew that he was the best basketball player on the team. He was so cocky, and one day he came to campus and he had a flaming basketball with his face in the middle of it, on the back of his calf. And like for years, everyone just made fun of him.
Big self-promoter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's no different. Kind of, a lot of guys have like the double lacrosse sticks with their last names.
All right. So,
but this was his face.
or their last name.
Let's have some fun with this.
On them somewhere.
Let's have some fun with this. If there was one guy in the NLL and you could pick a personality, you could pick a commissioner, you could pick a president, you could pick anyone.
An analyst.
A player, an analyst, whatever.
Podcast
A personality within the NLL. Who would get that same tattoo? You've got to pick one guy. Go.
Oh, who would get that same tattoo? I don't know. I think
Like, who's cocky enough to get that tattoo?
Josh Byrne.
Josh is quite cocky, but I might say Curtis. I love Curtis. He gives really good interviews. But I know that he really
To be clear, are we talking Curtis Dixon?
Yes.
Okay.
We're talking here.
A flaming basketball? Or
No, just his face on a flaming lacrosse ball.
Yeah, when I interview guys, I don't really get that cockiness a lot. If I was really thinking about it, and I don't think that he's cocky, but the person who gives me the coldest interviews all the time would be
This is juicy.
Would be Pat Coyle, and I don't think that he would ever get a tattoo.
Okay.
When I was covering the Mammoth as a beat writer in my first couple years writing for the league, I would call Pat up, and he was like the one guy who would like not give a shit about what he said to me. Like, he was just like, if I would ask him like really generic questions, like he would be like, why are you asking me that? Like, what's going on here? And I know that he's like super focused. Like, it's nothing against Pat, like, because NLL guys, and especially old time NLL guys, like dealing with the media. And I have to say, like, I put myself out there a lot. Like, it's probably very daunting for players to have to deal with some guy who's like texting and calling more often than they're used to.
Sure. And
especially for an old school guy like Pat, like I would imagine he's like, oh my God, why is this guy calling me again?
I mean, you know, in his defense, and this is maybe something that helped your development too, because I think you've come a long way just with the articles that you write and the coverage that you provide on Twitter and stuff. It probably helped you to know like what questions to ask, and it wasn't just like, you know, the brush and surface level stuff, right? He's like, why are you asking that? Like, what a basic question. Did you think that was
100%. I do extra prep, not specifically with Pat anymore, but with anybody. And it definitely helps to kind of figure out different people, because they have different type of mentalities, and also you have to fill out where you are. Like, I remember I interviewed Colt like a year ago, and it was like,
talking to your best friend.
I mean, it was a really good interview, but I remember at that time I was like not used to being around like players and the guys as much. And I was just like, I think it was Chris Bowman. He was like, yeah, just come by and have a couple beers with us after the game. And I was like, what?
Big beer team. And
yeah.
That's one of
the post game.
Original Joe's. That's one of the things though, like that I've always thought about is like, why, like, when did it come about? Like the interviews are so fucking dry. Like, the guys get on the mic and they ask you a question, and then the response is always like, you know, we just got to focus on dumping the puck in the corner and, you know, doing our thing, playing our game, sticking to our team. Like, as opposed to like actually acting like themselves, you know, and like just answering the question, you know, genuinely, and like,
it's a culture thing. And I think that players kind of grow up watching interviews with people that have done exactly the same thing, and then when they get to that level, you know who's a guy though that really stands out for me that has come so far, and I tweeted about this watching one of his interviews with Ashley Docking, and she's fantastic at what she does, just allowing people to kind of open up. She does a really great job of that, and that's a big reason for it, I'm sure too. But Rob Hellier, holy shit, man. I remember him on the floor with Claude Fagg. It was probably his rookie season, and he was answering questions from Claude. And for those who don't know, Claude Fagg used to be with TSN. And they were so stiff, like 1-2 word answers. And I was like, wow, that was a genuine waste of time. And now, you know, Ashley's interviewing Rob on the floor. He's having a fantastic season too. But he's just got like a smile on his face, a little bit more charisma, and he's owning it, right? And obviously that comes over time. But I think a big part of it is probably the reporters, right?
Adam
hopping on
Tyson.
board. yeah, if they're people that the guys can relate to and they're more comfortable with, then they're going to give you better answers. So that's number one. And that Ashley Docking example kind of goes to show that. But then the second I would say is these guys are coming up through the ranks watching the same shit. And in lacrosse, like how often do you deal with that when you're like 13? Never.
Yeah.
Like you're not really being primed.
The only
for
thing
it.
you see is what you see on TV and what you see on the Jumbotron.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. But like, I would like to see the culture change. It's I don't know, it's boring. It's what it is, as opposed to somebody just being like, yeah, you know what? That period was shit for us. We hope to go back in the dressing room. And
I've seen some of that from a couple of like the assistant coaches in the league when they're getting interviewed between periods or pregame or whatnot. I think they're starting to open up a little bit more. And I think as the media coverage kind of continues, you're going to see more guys really open up too.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing it in the young guys. One of my best interviews that I always have is with Trevor Baptiste. And I think
the American guys are too good.
He's so good, and I don't know how we developed a rapport necessarily, but like from the first interview that I did with him, like he just like was so open, and it was so great. And it's like one of the, like my proudest journalistic moments is like when you now search Trevor Baptiste's name and he's such a big star, like under his Wikipedia, like it's my NLL article of him, which is like I feel like super awesome about that. And it's like, and it's because he's so open.
Come on. And it was in my head already.
But yeah, it's like when you have guys that are open, like I just recently, about a month ago, did a piece on him, and like he opens up about being injured, which he didn't tell people and things like that. And he talks about his experience and like his personal journey through the game. Like you get an insight to players kind of like in a more professional, well, this is a very professional operation, but this is kind of like you're sitting with your buddies, like you're doing something. So to talk to like a mainstream reporter about like these kinds of things was a really cool experience.
Let's go back to the experience in Vegas, because you were one of the few. No, actually, there was some guys that made the trip out. I wanted to. I was fresh back from Hawaii, so I needed a little break from the vacationing, but it looked awesome. I mean, hopefully lacrosse goes to Vegas very soon. Yep. I think that was kind of like a test run, but what was the overall experience like?
It was great. The energy was really nice. It was interesting to talk to some of the people that worked in the SEALs. They loved the arena. They said compared to Pechanga, they really liked it. So that was their experience with it, which was great. And my fiance took the trip with me. We kind of used it as a little vacation, a little getaway. And she went to grab a ticket last minute, and she said that the line was around the door, or a lineup, as you Canadians call it, right? That's when I would use lineup, not line.
I wouldn't have thought about that, but yeah, we do say lineup, I guess.
I would say the line around the block. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the line up, whatever it was, she said that like 10, 15 minutes before the game, all of these people that weren't lacrosse people, they wanted a ticket, because in Vegas, all you want is a show, right? And the NLL is trying to market itself as a show, and it really puts on a great show in many arenas. So from her point of view, it was like amazing to see that there were about 50 to 100 people just waiting last minute to buy a ticket. Yeah,
Govett, Gross, and like Kroenke Sports and Entertainment really, I don't know, put that at the forefront when they were getting the Mammoth there. You got to see that. It was one of the best places to go, like the pyro before the game, the motorbikes on the turf, stuff like that. So if they're kind of in charge.
I don't like talking about it, man. I miss it every day. It's two of the best years of my life.
I miss it every day. Two of the best games that I went to in my life.
Just the city is unbelievable. That place is unreal to live, and they treat you right in Colorado.
But you gotta put on that show is my point, I guess. And like I said, Govett and Gross are two guys that really know that. Pechanga is a tough arena to do that in, I think, because it's older. Like it's not the easiest to put all the bells and whistles on display without really, having the tools and the, I don't know.
No, yeah. Else, for what they have, they put on a really good show, not just with the product on the floor, but the whole environment, everything. I think that all the teams are kind of really branding really well and trying to doing what they're trying to do.
On that note, let's go to Halifax.
Yep.
How fantastic was that game
Unbelievable.
against the Rush? And that building is like on my list. I kind of have a soft spot for this squad.
Yeah.
Because maybe it's just the city, but you want to see them succeed and maybe make the final in their first year. I don't know. They're not quite like a Vegas in the NHL, the Golden Knights going on their first year, but it would be amazing for the city of Halifax. And that's a city that proved that they deserve it after that game. For sure.
Yeah, no, it's and there was a video that went viral, right, from the stands, just seeing what it was like when they had that comeback this weekend. Really great to see, and big team guy Pat Gregoire doing those broadcasts, making some really great calls on there too. But amazing to see that, you know, that's what you want for it's not an expansion team, but to see an expansion city kind of come out and put on the show that they're doing and things like that. It's, you know, one of those things where you need that kind of surge. You need a winning team, but you also need, you know, a city to buy in. And I think that when I did an article on the Rochester Nighthawks, you know, I was asking the question, so it's a lacrosse city, Rochester, because of its history, but how do you make sure that fans understand that it's still going to be a lacrosse city even with this new franchise? Because it's not going to feel like that for a while.
Yeah.
And you know, they're doing, you know, talking to the guys, they're embracing the community. They're saying, hey, like, look, it may be tough, but we're going to put on a show for you every single night. And, you know, we've seen their progression and what they're doing. And you just have to keep doing that in a new market and with a new team sometimes. And Halifax is doing a great job at that.
We were talking before of being an analyst and a writer. You have stories that you want to possibly write in the NLL. Any that come to mind?
Yeah, one that I'm going to be trying to get up in the next week or so is obviously the performance of Zach Higgins has been unbelievable this year.
Okay, this is a guy who I thought for years should have been a starter in the NLL or should have had a chance, and I'm pleased to see him getting that now.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because he did play behind Matt Vince, which I guess you don't expect him to get a chance there, and then he was behind Chiliano and Christian Del Bianco for some time too in Calgary.
And then in Georgia, was he not?
Yeah, in Georgia he was behind Brody McDonald. Actually, Poulin wasn't there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then he was behind Bouquet as well. The first year in Buffalo before Vince was there.
And that's when I thought he should have taken over the starting job. He showed what he had what it took.
Yeah.
It was a tough year for the Bandits. But anyways, continue.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, he hasn't had as many opportunities as people may have thought he would have had. But, you know, this year, I guess, in part because of the experience he's had being behind different goaltenders, I mean, you're really seeing his development and his maturity, and listening to him in interviews and podcasts, you're really seeing him develop and grow as a person. I mean, he's older now. What is he, like 30 years old? So he's
Is that considered older?
Is that old? What are you saying?
Yeah.
It's no.
You're the one with the wedding ring on, man.
That's true. He's not old, but I mean, for him to have, he's got like 6-7 years in the league, and he doesn't have consistent starting time underneath him. It's like, you need that consistency to kind of build your rhythm, right? And if he's not, how much time does he have to build that rhythm before his body just says, I can't do this?
Well, hopefully we see that story.
Yeah, I hope so too.
But the NLL is a league where you need years under your belt. Like, a lot of the time you don't see guys start to really break out and take that next step until like later in their career.
Yeah, 25, 26 is usually the beginning of that like peak time for goaltenders.
Except you, Delbs.
Except
somehow
you,
you
And
broke
Dylan.
mold.
Dylan.
Oh yeah, Dylan Ward too.
Hard left turn. What do you think the ugliest number in the NLL is? I was thinking about this the other day when I was watching lacrosse. And Ben, we'll get you in on this too. Who do you think is, you know, has the ugliest number as it could be offense or defense, but I've thought about this.
I think just my mind immediately goes to 78. I don't know why. It's just
yeah.
like
Anybody?
I feel 7 and 8.
Who's wearing that?
No
Anybody?
idea.
No idea.
Jordan
no.
Durston.
Jordan Durston.
That's
That
a Jordan
is-
Durston number.
Well, he does it well.
Tyson.
He makes 78 cool.
That's a tough one. 7 and 8 don't really go well together. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh man. I'm gonna struggle with that one. Like that's a pretty good pick.
We'll come back to you.
Yeah,
Ben?
like, give me a second here.
The one thing I've noticed, I don't know if it's just his socks, and I haven't followed NLL forever, but 82 with Joey Capito.
I love 82. That was my number in hockey back
Everything
in the
about
day.
Coops is ugly though. Not personally. I'm just saying his style is gross. He tucks in his jersey. It's but he makes it work. Like
I just
he's got
picture
an ugly-
82 as a receiver to me. That's an NFL.
But
number.
in fairness, Coops was a very good football player.
Yeah.
Like he won whatever the hell that Canadian Cup was. I think twice.
There you go, Levi. There's another story for you.
I wish I
cover.
could remember because he talked about it quite often.
Kufla?
Yeah. No, there's
No, that's Canadian University Field Lacrosse.
whatever
My brain's not
whatever
working
the
today.
University Cup was. The something with an M. I don't know. You have one? Yeah, Tyson.
Man, I think he's got a great choice at 78.
Here's what I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a man by the name of Chris Kluche at number 2 is
These are my numbers, man.
is
Two-
the
two
most
is-
the most hideous offensive player number you could possibly have. I don't think that you should go below. I think Dan Dawson holds number 6. I don't think as an offensive player you should go below number 6.
I don't like 6 for an offensive player.
I don't either, but he's one of the goats. Okay, so he gets to wear 6.
Number 4 stinks. 3 stinks. I don't like
That's
3.
what I'm saying.
3 for an
anything
offensive
below
player.
6. 1 sometimes. Sometimes 1 works. Sometimes you can get a stud
Like
who's
Rambo.
rocking number 1. Yeah,
Rambo.
he's American too, though. Like
Wow. Whoa.
fuck you. Americans rock those goofy numbers. I'm just saying, like
The flashier,
I'm number 1.
Yeah.
less humble numbers. Paul Rabel, number 99 kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Not that Wayne didn't do it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I know you had to go. As a watcher of the podcast,
Yes.
I thought I would bring my most spittin' chicklets like story for you.
Okay.
It's not lacrosse based, unfortunately, but you mentioned my wedding ring. I feel very lucky to have met my fiance Nikki because when she was in Prince George, she lived there most of her life.
10 years his senior. by
Yes,
the way.
that's true. She looks 25. I met her in a school cafeteria, and I asked her about the school's vending machine options, and it was the best pickup line ever. I
hear
will
it?
tell you my tricks. No, I just asked her what she thought, and
There was no like actual well
No.
thought out pickup line. It was
No,
just
I
like,
just-
what do you think about the vending machines?
no, that was a really good impression of me. Yeah.
does this end with you having sex with her in the school or
No. But so I feel lucky because
We got a bag of ketchup chips together.
when she was
dressed?
when she was in Prince George, it was the time where Zdeno Chara was there with the Prince George Cougars, and he actually worked at the car dealership that.
Did he have sex with your wife?
Well, he wanted to. He wanted to have
That's what she
sex
tells you.
with my wife, and so he was the lot boy at the time, and my fiance Nikki, she was the receptionist, and he would like slack off on his job, and then he would just go behind a desk, like so she couldn't see him, and he would call her, and he'd be like, "Hello, how are you doing?" Like, and he'd try and pretend it wasn't him, even though you could tell it was him, because how many Slovakians are in Prince George? Yeah. And he
Not
would,
bad Slovakian accents, guys. They work.
and then so he would like constantly hit on her, and he was like, he would ask her out on multiple dates, and she's like, "No, I can't do it. It doesn't feel right." She was only like 16 at the time. He was, I don't know, 18, 19. And so she turned down a Hall of Famer for me, essentially. That's how I feel.
Potential gold mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good
Well,
on you.
she got a lot of shit for it at work. So she's like,
You
"What are
could've got
you
out of this
doing?"
place.
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Yeah.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
That's a good story. We usually like Ben, we're gonna. I got a little bit of time. I got about 6 minutes. You got anything for us today?
This is producer Ben's segment.
Producer Ben.
Hey, how's it going? So I just want to know kind of. Wait, I'm gonna cut back a little bit. I want to hear a little bit more on just quickly on Tyson's background and Colton's early background into the NLL, just because I haven't kind of got all of that. So where you kind of just the quick junior and then college, pros, kind of where you guys played.
Yeah, cool. I can sum mine up pretty quick because it was in like 3 years. No, so I was actually I played a little bit of box lacrosse growing up, like early years, but not much. And I started playing most of my lacrosse that I took somewhat seriously in high school, and that was field lacrosse. So not like many Canadians, I started with field and went to box eventually, but our high school field lacrosse team was pretty good. We ended up winning the provincial championship my senior year, which is pretty cool. And I fell in love with it and wanted to go to school with it because no one was offering me a hockey scholarship or anything like that, or even a spot on the team. So I started looking at my options. I picked Mercyhurst out of about like 8 schools that I was looking at, all like D2, D3.
Did you look at Adelphi?
No, I didn't.
Wow.
It wasn't on my list.
Yeah, it's whatever. Mercyhurst there. Not as good, but it's okay. As Adelphi,
Mercyhurst my senior year beat Adelphi for the national championship.
You know, I feel like I was at that game.
Were you?
Yeah. Was it Philadelphia?
My heart was at that game, getting shattered because I fucking transferred and I could have had that ring. But yeah, anyways. And then after my first year at Mercyhurst, I started playing junior A lacrosse with the Kitchener-Waterloo Braves, and that kind of got me into things. And obviously, there's some great talent that I played against there. Played junior B my next year. Then I go back to KW. Roster just wasn't the same. And then my last year of lacrosse for junior, I came out and played with New West. I went for a Minto, and that's where I met.
That's where his life changed.
Yeah,
for the best.
Yeah, that's where I met Colt. Played some junior there. And then I think I took some time off. Like, I don't know exactly what I was doing, but I had the chance to go to Peterborough and cover the Lakers that year and like host a broadcast. And that was kind of like the fork in the road. Like, do I try to play senior and at the time probably play for the Ajax Rock, who weren't very good? And, you know, just try to like sharpen my skills there and maybe make a push one day to play at a higher level. And I was like, it's probably not a good idea. So I went with the TV broadcasting side of things, and taking that Peterborough gig definitely helped me get my foot in the door for the NLL. A bunch of the guys had remembered me there from covering them with the Lakers. And when the NLL opportunity came up, it just seemed to work. So it's kind of my background getting into it.
Mine, I'll give you the kind of Sparks Notes version because I've been playing my entire life. I started when I was 4 years old. You know, climbed the ranks, intermediate, midget, blah 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 blah. Had next to no offers to go play field lacrosse, and really wasn't even on my mind, to be perfectly honest with you. I never really wanted to go to university, but I also had zero idea what I wanted to do with my life. So, you know, I was just like, okay, I got one offer from Bellarmine University, and the other one was, God, where was the other one? Dartmouth. And anybody who doesn't know, Dartmouth is an Ivy League school, I believe. I'm a dummy. Do not have the Ivy League grades, no matter how good of a lacrosse player I am, or was at that point. So I went to Bellarmine and went, no regrets, really. It was in Louisville, Kentucky. Extreme culture shock when I first got there, but had a ton of fun, to say the least. Didn't win shit, which is kind of a regret of mine that we didn't take it more seriously. But we were like, you know, a startup program kind of thing. I think it had been around for like 6 years at that point, but a couple big names had gone there. Sean Evans at the point, I think, got the boot from that school. Shout out Sean Evans. There's a lot of legend that go around about Sean Evans at that school, and
still
nobody unproven, like nobody's ever like confirmed the truth of like why he left Bellarmine University.
So we need to get him on the strip podcast.
Nothing too bad. But then from there, you know, I graduated, and then I went to drafted by Colorado, first round, 9th overall, bust. Played there for 2 years. I got drafted to the team. You know, there's a lot of studs on that team. My first year, I mentioned it last week in the podcast. There's Gavin Prout, Casey Powell, you know, Drew Westervelt, arguably one of the best American lacrosse players, you know, but doesn't play anymore. And then Sean Pollock was on that right side, so it was a tough right side for me to crack my first year. So I
didn't even say John Grant Jr. I know he's not a righty.
He's on the left side. I'm working my way over to that. You know?
I was just gonna say,
didn't play a lot of games,
and that's not even mentioning like
John Grant, Adam Jones were on the other side. Jamie Lincoln, Joel Delgarno at the time. I'm gonna get shit for missing somebody's name on that side, but I can't even really remember. But then the next year I moved to transition, where I played pretty much every single game up into a point where we had a coaching change, and I didn't even make it one practice before being taken off the short man. And then from that point, I played 2 more games before I got sat pretty well the rest of the year, and along with other guys that were getting played at the time. So from there, I got released the next year. I went to camp, and then I went out. I got offered to go to the Stealth at that point, and I decided not to take a year off and trying to figure out a career path wise. And then I didn't. I got a job actually at the company that I'm working at now, that I'm still here 5 years later. But throughout the time, I've only tried out for one other team, and that was the Warriors this year. Well, I tried out for the Stealth 1 year, and then got released, and then tried out for the Warriors again this year. And
so why didn't you make an extra push after the Warriors didn't work out? You're my roommate, so I know answers, and I've asked this before.
I
don't
honestly know. Like, I'm under the belief. Like, I know some guys will promote themselves and go after teams and ask to come to camps and things like that. I like to let my actions, kind of do the talking. So I feel like if I was having a good enough season, or if I was playing well enough that somebody would notice me, that I would get that opportunity. And just maybe that's the wrong way to think about it, but it's just kind of like, and I just enjoy playing lacrosse. Obviously, I'd like to play at the higher level still, but if out of how many teams there are, if I'm not getting noticed, then to me, you're not making millions of dollars. To me, it's not. I don't know.
It doesn't make sense, like I said, for you to go to the East Coast when you've got a full-time job here that pays pretty well.
Right. So for me to go to, like I say, to fly out to New York, it's a big time commitment. So
Huge.
It's like teams like the Warriors, obviously I'm a little bit more definitely.
So what about with the expansion? If there's teams like in Dallas, like there's rumored, or Vegas or something like that, obviously with expansion.
I mean,
like,
Vegas, fucking
yeah.
I'll be your poster boy. But yeah, Dallas for sure. I would make the flight. Don't get me wrong. I probably would if given the opportunity. I made the team. I sit here saying that I wouldn't. I probably would, but the opportunity wasn't given to me to go to a team like New York's. Nobody was calling my phone. So here I sit. It also gave Tyson and I the chance, and Ben now, to do something that we've been talking about for a couple of years, and hopefully grow the game in a different way. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Good question. I've always loved talking about myself.
Still need sponsors though.
Yeah.
Help us help grow the game by sponsoring.
There's a lot of local breweries here that we're drinking delicious beer.
Yellow Dog. Hazy 5, Hazy IPA.
One last thing we like to ask our guests.
Yep.
Who do you want to see on?
Who do I want to see on? I think Mitch said it. A lot of the East Coast guys, that maybe come here to play Vancouver. I think obviously you guys talked about the toughness of the schedule. My biggest personality, like the guy I love the most, is Blaze Reardon. I know that he's not coming out west, but if I think I went on Twitter and I said, like, just fly him out. Like anyone who's doing lacrosse media, just fly him out for anything.
Fly him out. Sponsors.
Yeah, Air Canada, Delta, somebody. It's just like whenever he's on camera, he's like absolute gold, and I think it's just because he's being natural. Like he's really just being himself, and like he's got this persona. Like he sounds like Tony Soprano, but he comes off as like the nicest dude in the world. Yeah, and he just has like his one-liners are amazing.
So my question that I haven't got to, that maybe we'll end with, I guess, unless you have anything else, is what do you want to see from the NLL? Two-part question. NLL, and then we'll say like Lacrosse Flash and Stripped. Like, where do you want to see this project go? Where do you want to see the NLL go?
Yeah, I mean, for this project, this is an amazing step forward, and I know that we've talked a lot about it. I think that it's kind of on guys like me and the team to kind of keep moving this forward. And, you've always been a great leader of what Lacrosse Flash is and kind of this whole project. And I think that it's amazing to have this kind of platform for players. You've mentioned, that this is kind of a potential for like a Players Tribune kind of like thing. And I think that, these guys are so interesting, these lacrosse players. And I think that continuing to give them that platform to make them feel comfortable, to Curtis's point about interviews, like how bland some like regular interviews can be, like, the more that we engage with players, like talking to you, like when I first talked to you, I think I've interviewed you twice, like I was probably really boring and generic, but like as I've gotten to know you, I probably feel a little bit more comfortable. And like, I think that the more that media as a whole gets exposed to the NLL and those guys get exposed to us, then I think we're on a path to grow the game. For the NLL, I think that they've made a lot of really good strides. Their highlight team, they brought in a guy, his name is Scott Turkin. He's amazing. He worked at ESPN for over a decade and creating content and things like that and really pushing it. So the numbers that you're seeing have increased in Twitter and Instagram and things like that. And the thing is that he doesn't have necessarily a past for lacrosse, like we were talking about the WLA and people who have been there for life, but these are people who really want to learn the game and kind of grow it. And you've seen that kind of across the board with the NLL. I think that Nick has brought in smart people who want to help the NLL grow. And I think that you're seeing it trend in a positive direction. So it's going to take time for the league to get where most people want it to go, but slow and steady can win the race.
I think to that point, I think if you're going to bring people in,
Yep.
like Jessica has done and what I've seen her doing, she's really like making that effort to learn about lacrosse and the history of it and the players and just become so invested in it. And anyone who comes in has to do that from now on.
Oh,
because I think there's been some people who have maybe just kind of like treated it as a job and they don't go the extra mile to learn the players' names or, the history of the teams or whatever. Like you have to know this game inside and out. And even for the people cutting highlights and posting on social media, you can't just be blindly posting stuff out there about things that, don't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, who would you rather take, the all-time leading goaltender in wins or this guy who is just not on his level, right? Like those posts just don't make sense anyways.
Yeah. No, totally.
All right, guys, I got to go. I have a meeting at 7:30. My breath smells like booze. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Tyson. Thank you, Ben. Sponsors.
Sponsors.
Not thank you yet. Listeners, thanks for listening. Tyson, anything?
Well, we got giveaways coming up with the Lacrosse Flash, so stay tuned. Those are going to be given away on our social channels. Follow along, sponsor, subscribe, what have you. Give us a little 5-star rating if you're feeling generous as well, and maybe a positive review.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Anything from you?
No.
I mean, we can kind of continue this, really.
Yeah, I mean, I just love what you guys are doing here. Like, I really do. I think that the league, does its great job. And, you can have suit and ties, and then you can have like guys who are more just, doing their thing. I wish I had gum. I don't. Sorry. I don't know. I think that you just keep trucking on. You've always been, you have this energy, right? So I think that, you guys having players, if you look at what Charles Barkley and who was it, Kenny Smith and Shaq and what they do, that's genius. It's brilliant television, and it's because they're former players and they're good personalities, and there's enough of those around.
Yeah, former players, good personalities, but like Stephen A. Smith is another one that comes to mind, right?
Yeah,
and like he's polarizing, but love him or hate him, you're watching what he has to say.
Yeah,
and he's a personality. Like it's kind of an act, and some people don't get that. Yeah, I think. Like they're like, oh, this is what he actually thinks. He's saying things to push buttons.
Yeah, and I hear that he's actually a really nice guy.
I bet he is.
Yeah, he comes off as a complete asshole.
Sure.
And when I see him on TV, I can't stand him. But I don't know. It's great to have media like that, and just got to keep pushing it. Yep.
I gotta take my phones.
Oh, both of them. All right, well that'll do it for the Strip Podcast, episode 7?
7.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to the Strip Podcast. Catch a new episode every Wednesday. We're giving away prizes every week. Follow along with our social channels at Lacrosse Flash.
Once again.